Hey everybody, welcome back to Travis Nail Fishing. I got some more stuff to go over with you today. Went up to Susquehanna Fishing Tackle to their Bass Fest, and we saw a couple of the pros. We saw Chris Johnston, we saw Gray Buck, and we saw Jay. Won't even try to pronounce his last name, but I'm going to flash it up here in a second of all the speakers that were there. They had some really good deals. They have a ton of stuff in stock. Tons of stuff that you can't find at Bass Pro, tons of stuff you can't find at Dick's. They're located up in Columbia, PA. It's a little bit of a haul for me. It took us about 2.5 hours to get up there. But I think it was definitely worth the trip. We learned some stuff and got some really cool stuff to show you. And all this stuff I'm going to be going over today. So I'm going to try to go over this in a way that kind of makes sense, in an order that all the baits and different kind of terminal tackle kind of goes together. First couple things that I got for these Tungsten Moon Eyes from VMC. Pretty much the smallest weights I could find, your 1/16 and your 3/16. And these are really light and should help you get some of that roll action with the Moon Eye. And then these are the scope heads in 1/4 and 5/16. These, with their big underneath keeper, really keeps the soft plastic locked in. And with that elongated bottom, they really show up on forward-facing sonar. They have a double keeper on them, where this part is the actual still tungsten, and then the wire keeper up top. Then with the scope heads, they might have some lighter weights, but the 1/4 is the smallest I could find. Last year I used the 5/16 up on the Conowingo to catch some fish, but they might come into a smaller size if you look on their website, but I just couldn't put my hands on any of them. Then to stay on that same track, I got hands on these new Mooch Minnows, made famous by Wheeler and Dustin Connell. These are actually a floating plastic, so instead of them being loaded with salt and them sinking, these should actually kind of help counterbalance your jig head weight. So it might be a little learning on getting a different kind of jig weight that works for them. But I'm looking forward to seeing what I can do with them, with that little twisty tail, and when you're reeling it, it should give you that really good action. Try to give you guys a little better zoom in on them. Kind of lighting. But those with the little prop tails, they should give those a really nice action on the back of a jig head. Staying on that finesse-y kind of finesse fishing, I went ahead and got the new Suffix Revolve finesse braid. Now I always ran a dark green up until this year, but I'm hoping with the lime green I'll be able to detect those bites a little bit better. That way, instead of always trying to feel for them, it's a little bit of a visual thing as well, especially on those dark days where you can't hardly see the line. So I'm hoping that can make a difference for me too. Next, I'm more of a worm fisherman than I probably like to admit. It's kind of my go-to whenever I can't get bit around here, throwing around tight wood, docks, and even on the grass. Cinco and any kind of stick worm comes through the grass very well. I went ahead and picked up a couple different ones. So this one here is your general with the max scent. If you can't tell, love this color. So this one is the same 5-inch, and then these are the 4-inch Senkos. So these ones I love the wacky rig. I think the smaller worm lets it fall a little quicker, and it's not as much for a fish to miss when they're biting it. 5 inches are pretty much exclusively for Texas rigs. Sometimes I'll go to a shaky head on them, but I just don't love the way Senkos look on the back of a shaky head. I don't think it gives them the best action, but these are very good on the back of a shaky head. The big tail lets that tail kind of stand up versus just a regular old stick worm. And these are Daiwa, but they're a custom with the Gary Yamamoto. Yeah, I've caught so many fish on this color. It's my go-to. Probably a little bit of my downfall too. It's pretty much because I only pick up this color and pretty much black and blue on Senkos. Throwing green pumpkin. Most of the time I'm throwing this. The next baits I'm looking forward to throwing next year are these 6 cents Crubs. They're in a 3-inch size. This one here is your fire crawl. Red belly and a green back with some red flake built into it. And then this one's crawfish crunch with some red flake, some gold flake, but it's that Alabama crawl color. And these have the hollow body like a tube, kind of hence the name of the crew. So those hollow baits, I love throwing the ones with the hollow bodies. It's a little hard to rig up at first, but I really think it makes a difference in getting bites whenever you're rigging it on a Texas rig with a weight. Anytime you're lifting that bait up and down, you're getting those little bit of bubbles that come out of the body, just like a real bait fish would whenever it's paddling its tail. I really think it's another thing that helps me get some more bites than other people. And moving along, these are for a little bit of a Ned head bait, especially when I go up north this year for, you know, Champlain, St. Lawrence, Oneida. If I'm throwing any kind of bait, it might just be me, but I love throwing max scent or power bait. I think it's just a little bit of reassurance in my head that, you know, if the fish bites it, he's going to hold on to it for a little bit longer so I can get a hook into him. Instead of putting scents on all your baits, they come pre-packaged like this. Next, I'm going to run through the Z-Man trailers for a chatterbait. I don't always use Z-Man trailers for the chatterbaits. The only thing I hate about them is that if you throw them on your floor and you got other kind of soft plastics on the floor, you'll get a molten mess of plastic. For some reason, whatever kind of elastic they use, whenever it touches some kind of salty soft plastic, it'll pretty much disintegrate both of the plastics, and you got a pretty nasty mess on your boat. So I don't have all the same colors, but this is their ChatterSpike. ChatterSpikes have the straight tail on the back of them. Straight tails give you less resistance, and these are the ones you can get down the deepest. On like a 3/8, half ounce, you can get this down to like a foot or two deeper than your paddle tails. Your other one I'm getting ready to show you are the ChatterShads. These are new, they're different than the Razor Shad. The only way they're different is in the joint. Versus these, I'll pull them out in the package here soon. Just have a different kind of segmented body, same kind of tail. So here's your Razor Shad, a personal. I picked out 2 colors that I had of each. And then this is your ChatterShad. So with the ChatterShad, it's got that really cool little joint in them. And it still has your 3 segmented tails. But with the ChatterShad, it's rounded all the way around. Has that real bait fish look. And also when they designed it, it was faux. When you're throwing your chatterbait and you're in a heavy wind, this isn't catching as much wind as comparative to your Razor Shad. Razor Shad has the square kind of end. Not square, but it's definitely more bulky. But it still has those same segmented tails. But with this has a little bit more tendency to catch the wind. And you see your bait start curling off to the right. Sometimes you just got to go to a little bit more aerodynamic trailer to get that cast length that you're looking for. And going back on these Z-Man's elastic plastics. They are a little difficult to rig. This is your green pumpkin. And then this as well is that new color bluegill that I have never seen before. It's got that orange flake in the top, as well as that dark green bottom that looks very much like a bluegill. But to stay on that whole elastic, it can be a little complicated or difficult to rig. So when I first started fishing and I was really using these kind of trailers, I went ahead and did a whole bunch of them in the garage one day before I even went out on the boat. And like I said about them melting on other plastics, if you put them in a tackle box, they'll melt. So what I would do is fill up a whole bag of these full of chatterbaits. Certain ones you have a bag full of green pumpkin, a bag full of whites, and a bag full of black and blues. I would go ahead and rig a whole bunch of them to a point where I was satisfied with them. Super glue a little bit on it. They really don't need super glue with the new wire keepers they're using on them. This was back when I was throwing the original chatterbait with the little lead keeper on it. But you could do a whole bunch of them, get them right, and you can put them into a bag, and then you'd be set for the whole year. Just make sure you put it in a bag that had elastic on it, and you'll be good to go for the rest of your year. Then another trailer for your chatterbaits, a little more user-friendly in my opinion, are these power bait Powerstingers. So these have power bait in them. And like I said before, if I'm throwing something, I'd rather throw power bait just so I know it's throwing off that little scent field around it. But these aren't the elastic. You might go through a couple more. But these also have your honeycombs in them. That lets it keep that mobility without having the jointed tails. And if it had the jointed tails without the elastic, it'd just be a rip-off on a bluegill, rip-off on a yellow perch. But these hold up very well. And this is the black and blue. But these are a really cool little trailer. Went ahead and got those in a variety of colors. Got a majority in black and blue. I also got a majority of the Alabama Crawl. And all these trailers are kind of your fishtail shapes. So you can throw a paddle tail on the back of them. I personally don't like to throw paddle tails on the back of chatterbaits. I think it kind of messes with your head action. And I really think that a majority of your bites is when you can get that chatterbait to change a little bit of direction. You have a big paddle tail on the back of it, it doesn't really change directions. He's kind of always dragging your bait behind. So versus on these smaller kind of fishy trailers, you can do those little jerk stops and get that bait to jump left, jump right. And I really think that's where you get most of your bites, from my experience. Next thing I'm going to talk about are your new Z-Man ChatterBaits that are Tungsten Evos. So these have a smaller head on them comparative to your 3/8 jackhammer. I'll dig one out real quick for a little comparison. But also with the tungsten, when everybody has their hands on your regular chatterbait, especially on the flats where everybody and their brother seeing you throw a chatterbait, so they're going to throw a chatterbait. That tungsten's going to give off a little different sound than the lead. When you're reeling a chatterbait, you've seen it when you pick up a chatterbait that's been thrown a lot. The head gets worn out right here. So when that chatterbait with the tungsten is hitting that tungsten head, it should give you a different pitch sound than the fish are really used to hearing. And there's your little comparison at the 3/8 and a jackhammer versus your 3/8 and a tungsten. Smaller head, sleeker head, same blade design. Only complaint that I've ever had out of the Evos is that I caught a couple big fish on them, and then your little snaps can get bent out. What I recommend is that you can take some of your old jackhammers that don't have as good skirt material, blades all jinked up. You can go ahead and take that snap ring out and replace it with a jackhammer split ring. It's not really a split ring, whatever you want to call them. But jackhammers do have better components on them comparative to your Evos. That's why your Evos are a little bit cheaper on the price scale. But they do not come out with a tungsten jackhammer yet. So for now, I'm going to chuck this around. I'll get back to you guys on if it's much better or if it's about, the same as you normally would with a jackhammer. Real quick, I'm sure everybody here knows how to rig a chatterbait, slide it up on. I just want to show you guys this Powerstinger on the back of this Tungsten Evo. I usually throw the 4 1/4 in the Powerstinger on here. So first thing you do is kind of eye up your body, slide your head up all the way up the hook, see where that bait's going to pop out. The Powerstingers, they have the groove on the back of them. The 4 1/4, you'll pretty much rig all the way to the back of that groove. The nice thing about the Evos is that it's only got the 1 wire keeper on it. Your jackhammer has the double wire keeper. And I've noticed that if you accidentally mess up your rigging on something that's not elastic and you go to pull that off, you pretty much ruin that soft plastic. So, thread that on, straight on. Make sure you keep it very straight. Do I think it makes a difference when you keep it straight? I love to think that it does. But I've seen my dad in the back of the boat where it's a little bit crooked, even Senkos and stuff. Very mindful of what I'm doing when I'm keeping the bait straight. If the bait's not straight, I'll pull it back out, straighten it up. If I can't get it straight, new soft plastic's going on. I'm not in mid-season form at the moment. Maybe it's because the soft plastics are dense with it being cold. Go ahead and slide that on. And then that's your Powerstinger on the back of a jackhammer, well, back of an Evo. Really fits nice, gives you that nice tail action. And this does not really impart action on it. You're pretty much only getting that chatterbait blade to impart action. And these are your ATVs by Bill Lewis. We heard Gray Buck talk about these a lot, about how well they are coming through grass. He also recommends the SB by Bill Lewis. It's a circuit bill crankbait for when you're fishing around wood. But root beer crawl is really good in the springtime. This is your ghost minnow color for your more clear color applications. And then your chartreuse for your dirty water. They got a nice little rattle on them. It's not too crazy. Not like your rattle trap rattles. But it's enough to get hurt in the grass. So, my favorite crawl bait of all time, I've caught so many fish on this bait, is your baby pack crawl. 3.75 inches. As you can see, it has that hollow body design, like the Croups. These are your sungill color. They got the bait fuel in them. Before, when I started throwing them, they were just regular net baits. They got bought by American Bait Works, and they added in that bait fuel. I think it makes a big difference with the bait fuel. I don't go and put bait fuel in all my baits, because a lot of the baits I use are your max scents. Then another one of my favorite flipping baits is this Creature Hog, the Alabama Crawl. So this Alabama Crawl is a new color they came out with this year. Very happy that they did. I've always caught fish on this orange and greenback. But with the power bait, it's their most potent scent formula comparative to the power bait regular. And like I said, the fish just hold on longer with these. I think you catch more fish. I think you catch the ones that are a little more educated, the ones that have been caught before. And I just think it does a great deal for confidence for me. Staying on the max scent, these are chicker crawls. I love Berkley baits. I love the power bait. I have a dog named after Berkley. But these are your chicker crawls, 4-inch. And that's that same kind of Alabama crawl color. So another one of my favorite flipping baits is this Berkley power bait Pit Boss. It's my favorite for out in the grass. It has 4 appendages on it. And what I've come to realize is that if you throw it over with like 5/16 ounce tungsten, that you get really good action out of those appendages whenever it's falling straight down. Comparative to when you're throwing it on something lighter than that, I just don't think you get the right action. And a lot of time those bites are coming right on the fall. Hardly do I ever get dragging baits. Hopefully that'll change a little bit coming up soon. But most of my bites are flipping it out, letting it sink, pop it back up, let it sink, pop it back up, let it sink. But that, with the 5/16 ounce tungsten, it gives you that really good action when it's falling straight down. And next I got these hammer traps by Bill Lewis. Caught some good fish on these in the fall last year. He just came out with a mini hammer trap. These are in 3/8. They also come in a 5/8. Like 3/8 in shallow water, you can get away with your 5/8 in your deeper lakes, deeper reservoirs, deeper Susquehanna River places. But the 3/8 is perfect for covering that shallow wood and the shallow grass. Give you a little better view of these Bill Lewis's. They got a nice rattle on them. A bunch of little BBs in them. But really good bait in my opinion. That one before that was oyster. And then this one's the chrome and blueback. Next I got were the Strike King Hybrid Hunters. It's the same kind of crankbait as that 6-cent swank. It's that really big body. These were half off yesterday up at Susquehanna Fishing Tackle. That chartreuse and blackback is really good in that Titanic water, in my opinion, that we see on an Anacote, chop tank, any kind of Titanic water. Really nice rattle in it for when you're ripping around grass, lily pads, any kind of thing. They're going to hear that thing coming, and they're going to hunt it down and get it. Getting down to the end here. So, my favorite fluorocarbon goes back and forth. For your kind of finesse techniques and your lighter baitcaster techniques, can't go wrong with the Sunline Sniper. So Actually, at Susquehanna Fishing Tackle yesterday, they had it in your 1200 yard spool for 10% off. You can never find Sunline on sale. I've looked and looked and looked and can never find it. Also went ahead and got this backing only line. So instead of burning up, I used to go through and use like the end of my spools on backing. But now that I got a line dedicated for it, I've seen this year that some of your braid backing, you can get it to slip off the spool because of how slick it is. With that, it's monofilament, so that stuff shouldn't slide off the spool. When you get your knot from your monofilament to your braid or your monofilament to your fluorocarbon, you're not going to get that slippage on the spool that you sometimes get if you're using braid as your backing. Down to the last two things. Picked up this Custom Pro speed spool yesterday at Susquehanna Fishing Tackle. $280 reel down to $160. Thought it was a pretty good deal. It's 11 bearing system with your 6/8 to 1 gear ratio. Picked it up and it's super smooth. A high quality reel in my opinion. So I ran back up to Bass Pro and got another one of these 13 Fishing Concept Z slides. So this one is your 7 1-to-1. Your braking is actually built into your little side casing over here. So you go ahead and slide that off. And that little knob inside is with your brakes that you can adjust. It's made out of the cast iron carbon, so hopefully there's no issues with the casing. You got your regular old knob tensioner for how quick the bait falls down, as well as your slide. That way you can make little adjustments to it without having to adjust the knob on the reel tension. Bright orange handled reel grips, so I think it looks cool. And I'll show you guys how to rig up one of these Mooch Minnows real quick on the Scope Head by Buckeye. So you always want to make sure that you kind of line up where your hook point's supposed to be pointing out. Kind of like so. Kind of make a mark on your bait in your mind that, okay, the bait's supposed to pop out there. Always when you're trying to stroll a jig, hover. Stroll a minnow, hover a minnow, mid-strolling. It's really important to get that bait straight on. That way it's got no kink. These fish have seen so many of these presentations now at this point. It's not just like you're fishing for the wide open out there. You're kind of going after pressured fish. So with that elastic, you kind of got to pull it way over top of that wire keeper. That's how I rig it. It's got that really nice prop tail on the back of it. It's hard to keep still. When you're reeling that through the water, it's going to be dancing. Should be awesome for on the scoop. Well, thanks for sticking around with me. Got to show you off some of that new stuff. I really think that new Tungsten Evo Chatterbait is going to be awesome for this year. Just because those fish on the Upper Bay, the Potomac, I've seen that jackhammer so many times. I really think a swim jig is going to start playing because those fish are getting smarter. They don't eat everything like they used to. But I also showed you guys some of those creature hogs, those baby packer crawls. All those baits are great for me out in the grass, as well as, the jigger crawl, and even throwing a Senko around. I think they're great baits. I think they'll get you some bites if you throw them on this song. Well, thanks for sticking around to the end. So these are my new hats. My girlfriend Elena ended up making them for me, kind of for the YouTube channel. I think once we hit 100 subscribers, we'll do a giveaway for a couple people. And eventually, I'd like to be able to make some t-shirts and stuff and whatnot. But I appreciate y'all sticking with me to the end. I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button. And everybody that subscribed to me from yesterday, I went and put flyers out on cars and trucks at the parking lot of Susquehanna Fishing Tackle, kind of going over who I am and what I am. And I appreciate everybody. And let's start building this up so that way once we get to the BFLs, everybody can follow along with me. Thank you, and peace.